From the glossary. Synthesis. The universal principle through which collective intelligence sees and understands the holographic nature of reality. As humanity begins increasingly to understand the world around us as a perfectly interwoven fractal pattern, with us as the eyes of that pattern, we will enter into the age of synthesis. In order to know what synthesis means, you must first unlock the latent genius within your DNA. The very manifestation of that genius is to see beyond any single discipline. At the level of genius, one can see and directly know the interconnectedness of all patterns and disciplines. As humanity begins to move more as a synarchy, we will begin to externalize the truth of synthesis. So synthesis is a very profound concept that deserves deeper contemplation. I'm not sure how many people truly understand this notion of a holographic universe. What it means is that there's a perfection woven into the cosmos. And that doesn't just mean through the forms that we see. It also means through the unraveling of the evolution of those forms and the timing of the evolution of all those forms in the cosmos, and even the shadow frequencies and the very difficult to understand, unpleasant side, the great question of suffering. All of that is also part of the synthesis. It's also part of the perfection of the cosmos. And since the beginning of time, there have been people who have entered into the state of synthesis, seeing the synthesis, and not just seeing it, it's knowing it and becoming one with it. Synthesis means to bring together all the parts, all the fragments into the whole, and see the whole, understand the whole. And in this definition, it talks about as humanity begins to understand the world around us, as the eyes of that pattern, we enter into the age of synthesis. We entered into the age of synthesis in 1987. I mean, officially, cool. But really, it's we're beginning now, and we will increasingly, as a species, learn to see. Learn to see more and more of the synthesis and inhabit it more and more. And as we do so, our hearts open, our minds expand, we become more compassionate because we realize the interconnectedness. We realize that we're part of the pattern, looking at a pattern. We're not these isolated materialistic forms, that we have come to believe that we are, that die and then that's it. Or even that die and then go to heaven or whatever. We are, we live in the eternal moment. And it's about knowing that you must first unlock the latent genius within your DNA. That's interesting. It means that you've got to, we have to do something. Something has to occur inside us in order for synthesis to be realized. And that is what we call genius. Genius is when your higher purpose begins to reveal itself in the world. Because all our higher purpose is the same. It's to inhabit the synthesis, to see things as interconnected, to know the interconnectivity of life. So this word synthesis, it means so many things. And when we apply our thinking to it in the world, if you look at the Eastern thought and the Western thought, if you look at indigenous thought and concepts, and then very ancient thought and concepts, and then modern scientific thought, synthesis is about all of those tempos coming together in a harmony, and all of them being understood. So we have to become polymaths, people that see through many lenses, not just one lens. It's not enough to see through one lens. You're an anthropologist, for example. That we're going to need to see deeper and look through different lenses and doorways, which means we have to work together more. Again, this is one of the manifestations of synthesis, is looking through each other's eyes. And as the collective consciousness begins to manifest and flower, so we begin to see through each other's eyes, and we begin to see through each other's genius, and we begin to experience that inside us. And then the synthesis is born, the true synthesis. So Gene Keys is a synthesis in the sense that it's an exploration into the interconnectivity of all things, of all beings. I've often said that the Gene Keys is the study of the everythingness. It's not the study of the nothingness, although it comes to the same thing, because seeing where everything is connected, seeing the same strand repeated over and over and over again, the same truth over and over and over again in the myriad forms, or in Gene Keys in the myriad words and ideas, but the same truth over and over and over again, hearing me droning on the same thing over and over and over again, but in different poetic lilts or in different directions being followed, the fractal line. That's synthesis. And as we begin to move as synarchy is, well, it's a separate definition, but it's the synthesis come to fruition in humanity, in our consciousness, and not just in humanity, but in all creatures, in all beings. May all beings be as one. That's the meaning of all those ancient mantras. So synthesis is a really powerful, important thing to understand. The Gene Keys is a synthesis, I hope you enjoy contemplating this term and exploring the synthesis.